Hi friends, welcome to Krako's video series. I'm Saili Kale. I'm one of the co-founders of Krako and an alumna of IIM Ahmedabad. In today's video, we'll be trying to explain what the CAT syllabus is. So, our endeavor through this series is basically to explain what is the syllabus, what topics are there, what kind of questions come in these topics, and what is the difficulty level that is there for these questions. So through this series, we'll be trying to introduce somebody who's just beginning to prepare for CAT, what to expect in CAT, what kind of questions come, and what are the concepts that are tested, what is the difficulty level that one should expect when they're preparing for CAT. So we'll begin this series by taking a look at the syllabus for algebra that is there in Quant. So let us first take a look at how many questions came from this particular topic. So what are the subtopics within this topic? So the questions, subtopics are basic algebraic equations. So basic algebraic equations is basically these are like the easiest sitter questions that come in Quant. You will just be described a simple scenario with numbers and you have to write down the word description into simple algebraic equations, solve them to get the answer. This does not require you to even solve linear equations or anything of that sort, which itself is a very easy part of Quant. So this basically is one of the simplest questions that comes in Quant, and if this does appear in Quant, you are supposed to solve it without making a mistake. So these are basically, this translates to essentially reading a question, writing two simple equations or one simple equation, solving it to get the answer. That's all that is required in this particular subtopic. The second is linear equations. So you will be given sets of linear equations. So two linear equations with two variables or three linear equations with three variables. You have to solve those linear equations to arrive at the answer. Generally, you don't get a question from this directly. What happens is that you will get a question from another topic which will require you to solve linear equations later on in the explanation. So it will be, you will need these the tools to solve linear equations to solve questions from other topics as such, especially like from profit and loss or from time distance work or time and work. So for all of those things, you will end up with sometimes with either a set of linear equations or set of or a quadratic equation or something like that, and you'll have to solve those equations to get to the answer. So linear equations by itself rarely comes, it generally comes as part of arithmetic or different other parts of Quant. The third thing that comes is inequalities. Again, inequalities is generally on the easier side, but because it is sometimes very unfamiliar, especially to students who are not from engineering background, that they tend to leave this topic. But this is not a difficult subtopic per se. Generally, these require you to enumerate the cases and find the different possible ranges, etc. So here you just need to have some amount of confidence in yourself. You also need the fundamental knowledge of inequalities and how to treat inequalities, but mostly it requires some amount of enumeration, and basically you need to be comfortable dealing with inequalities. If you're able to do that, it is not really an advanced topic as such. Again, quadratic questions are generally on the easier side because they are formula based. So if you know the formula, if you know the basic concepts of quadratic equation, and there aren't a lot of concepts to remember in quadratic equation, if you do know those, then these questions become easy. It just becomes application of those concepts. So quadratic equation questions are easy provided you know the formulae that are involved. So again, these are questions that you should not miss if you have prepared for CAT. Polynomial equation questions are hard. They require a lot of ingenuity, thinking, at times a lot of time to even solve, because at times you'll have to factorize a polynomial equation. These are generally questions I would not ask somebody to attempt in the first go, because there are other easier questions abound. Functions and graphs tend to be on the trickier side. Again, these are not something that there is no one deterministic way to solve a functions and graphs question. Like for example, quadratic equation, I can say, okay, this is the concept, these are the sub-concepts, these are all the types of questions that come from this topic. If you practice all of these questions, you will be thorough with everything that comes from quadratic equations. There is no such like definitive list as far as functions questions are concerned. Functions questions come in all different types, and there is no like a straight one-way approach to solving those kind of questions. So these questions tend to be on the harder side. So you should at times think whether or not you should attempt this question or not. There are very easy function questions, also pretty simple questions just requiring substitution of values. You should definitely attempt those, but some of them are on the trickier side. So you should just read the questions, see whether you want to attempt this or not, or move on to the next question and come to this question later on. The last, this is logarithm indices inserts. Logarithm indices inserts have a lot of formulas to remember, but if you remember those formulae, this is one of those subtopics where 2 to 3 questions come. If you remember the formulas, you will be able to solve those questions. There won't be any it won't happen that you have invested 2 minutes or 3 minutes in the question and you have not got the answer. If you remember the formula, if you put in the practice, you will get these 2 questions from logs, indices and surds correctly. So this is definitely an area where I would suggest that you work hard, you practice, and if you practice, you are confident in this topic, always attempt questions from the topic. So these are the different types of subtopics within algebra. Now let us take a look at the distribution of questions that come from these topics. So we have taken a look at what questions came from algebra in CAT 2017 and 18 over the 2 slots. So we have the slot 1, slot 2 for both of these years. As you can see, you can expect at least 10 to 13 questions from the algebra section. So this is a pretty important topic as far as quant is concerned. Apart, arithmetic and geometry are the 2 other important topics. So if you get solid at algebra, arithmetic and geometry, you would be able to solve majority of like most of the questions that come in CAT. So this is what you should keep in mind, that I have to get very good at arithmetic questions, then I have to focus on algebra and geometry and make sure that at least like 2/3 of algebra I should be able to solve. Even in functions I find tricky, even if that is the case, apart from say polynomial equations and functions, I should be absolutely rock solid in all the other subparts of algebra, and that is extremely doable. There is literally nothing that would stop you from getting almost every question from basic algebra, linear equations, inequalities, quadratic equations, and logs logs correct. So if you put in the effort, put in the time, you should be able to get all of those questions right, and that is about those number of questions are about 7 to 10 questions from those topics. So you should always target those topics and make sure that you always get those topics right. Polynomial and functions are sometimes easy, sometimes they are not. The functions questions in CAT 2017 and CAT 2018 were not difficult. In fact, they required just basic substitution. So I would not say that functions is something that you cannot attempt or you should not attempt. On the contrary to that, most of those questions are actually deceptively hard. They are in fact easy. If you just spend a minute or two, you will be able to solve them. But there can be extremely difficult questions from functions also. There can be pretty difficult questions from polynomial equations. So you have to pick and choose. Now let's go on to the next So what we'll try to do is we'll try to go through each of the subtopic and give you a recent CAT question from that subtopic, so you have an idea of what kind of questions come and what is the difficulty level that is there. So let's start with basic algebra. So consider this question. This is a recent CAT question. Let A1, A2, A3, A4 and A5 be a set of 5 consecutive odd numbers. Consider a new sequence of 5 consecutive even numbers ending with 2A3. If the sum of the numbers in the new sequence is 450, then A5 is. Now at first read, this seems like a question from progressions and series, but it is not. It requires you to form a basic equation, and that is all you will need. So A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 are 5 consecutive odd numbers, and the new sequence of even numbers is 5 consecutive even numbers ending with 2A3. So you have 2A3. What would be the penultimate even number? It would be 2A3 by minus 2. The middle number would be 2A3 minus 4. And second number would be 2A3 minus 6, and the first number would be 2A3 minus 8. So this would be the even series. Now based on this, the sum of this new sequence is 450. So let's add them up. So we have 10A3 plus 8 plus 6 plus 14, 14 plus 4, 18, 18 plus 2 is 20. So 2A3 minus 20 is equal to 450. So 10A3 is equal to 470. A3 is equal to 47. So A5 would be, A3 is 47, so A4 would be 2 more than that, so it would be 49, and A5 would be 51. So the right answer to this question, A5 is equal to 51. Now as you could see, this required absolutely no knowledge other than the understanding of even and odd numbers. Once you knew that, you could just had to translate this what is given in the question into this simple equation. Once you had the equation, it was pretty simple for you to get to A1, what the required answer is. So this required almost no other external knowledge. Anybody should have been able to solve this, and this is an actual CAT question. So as you can see, you can always expect some set of questions like this in CAT, and once you find that, you should definitely solve that question. So now that you know what basic algebra involves, let's go on to the next type, which is linear equations. Now consider the following recent CAT question. If a and b are integers of opposite signs such that a plus 3 the whole square divided to b square is 9:1 and a minus 1 the whole square to b minus 1 the whole square is 4:1, then the ratio of a square to b square is what? Now this is kind of a ratio and proportion question also, but if we actually go on to solve it, it will require linear equations fundamentals to actually solve the question. Always remember, linear equations will definitely not come directly as saying that this is the level of CAT is such that you won't get questions at a buys 2 oranges plus 3 apples and it is this much, and 3 apples plus 2 oranges is this much, so how much is an apple, how much is an orange? That will not come in CAT, but something like this will come in CAT, where in after solving you will get a set of linear equations and you have to solve. So let's take a look at the questions. So a plus 3 the whole square to b square is 9:1. So this implies that there are two possibilities that are there. So you have a plus 3 to b is 3:1, or a plus 3 to b is minus 3:1. So let's consider both equations. So if you consider the first equation, then a plus 3 is equal to 3b, or a plus 3 is equal to minus 3b. So on solving, you get basically you get one linear equation like this. Similarly, for this you can consider there are two possible cases for a minus 1 the whole square to b minus 1 the whole square is equal to 4:1. So I can say that a minus 1 to b minus 1 is equal to 2:1, or it is equal to minus 2:1. So I get two possible equations based on that. So I get, if I consider it 2:1, then I get a minus 1 is equal to 2b minus 2, and I also get a minus 1 is equal to minus 2b plus 2. So I have 4 equations, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I don't know which one of these is the case, but if I consider all of these 4, I can take these 4 equations 2 at a time. Like I can consider this case 1, case 2, like case 1 and this value 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 3, sorry, let's say 1 and 2, 1 and 4, 3 and 2, 3 and 4. So I'll get 4 cases by taking 1 entry from this particular scenario and 1 entry from this particular scenario. So either this is essentially this or this, and this is essentially this or this. So one of these two is one of these two cases is true. So this is true or this is true, this is true or this is true. So I have to say, okay, maybe if it is this and this, then what is the answer? If it is this and this, then what is the answer? If it is this and 3 and 2, then what is the answer? If it is 3 and 4, what is the answer? Now let's take the case for 1 and 2. Then solving 1 and 2, I have a plus 3 is equal to 3b and a minus 1 is equal to 2b minus 2. So I can say that a is equal to 3b minus 3 and a is equal to 2b minus 1. So equating both sides, 3b minus 3 is equal to 2b minus 1, or b is equal to 2. And a will then be equal to 4 minus 2, that is 2 plus 1, so 3. But they are supposed to be of opposite signs, so this is not a real answer. So we can eliminate case 1 and 2. Now let's consider 1 and 4. So 1 and 4 is a plus 3 is equal to 3b and a minus 1 is equal to minus 2b plus 2. So in this case, a is equal to 3b minus 3 and a is also equal to minus 2b plus 3. So on solving I get 5b is equal to 6 or b is equal to 6 by 5. But they are integers, so I can directly eliminate this case. Now let's consider 3 and 2. Now considering 3 and 2, a plus 3 is equal to minus 3b and a minus 1 is equal to 2b minus 2. Now if I solve this, I get minus 3b minus 3 is equal to 2b minus 1. So on solving I get 5b is equal to, this is minus 2 is equal to 5b, again I get b is equal to minus 0.4. B cannot be equal to b we know is an integer, so this we can eliminate this particular case because b cannot be a decimal number as such. So we get the last case, which is 3 and 4. So 3 and 4 means that a is equal to 3b minus 3 is equal to minus 2b plus 3. So on solving I get minus b is equal to 6, so b is equal to minus 6, and a, if I put the value of that in 3, I get minus 18 minus 3, so I get a is this is equal to 18 minus 3, so a is equal to 15. So I get two integers of, I get only one case where I get integers of opposite signs, that is when this is equal to minus 3 and when this is equal to minus 2. So the only possible answer is a is equal to 15 and b is equal to minus 6. In this case, what is a square to b square? A square to b square would be 225 to b square is 6, so this would be 36. So removing 9 from numerator, dividing numerator and denominator by 9, I get this as 25 by 4. So the right answer is option D, 25 by 4. So as you could see, this required us to enumerate the possible cases, consider the possible cases one at a time and form different sets of linear equations. So we got 4 sets of linear equation. Only one of these 4 sets of linear equations gave the desired result, that is we needed integers of opposite sign. So only one set of linear equations gave that particular result. So because of that, we could find out the value of a square is to b square. So now let's go to the next subtopic, that is inequalities. So how many 2-digit numbers with a non-zero integer in the units place are there which are more than thrice the number formed by interchanging the position of its digits? So let's say the 2-digit number initially is xy. So x is in the tens digit, y is in the units digit. I am told that y is not 0. So how can I write this xy as? So the value of xy is essentially 10x plus y. So this is the first number. And what is the second number? The second number formed by switching the digits is 10y plus x. And I know that y is non-zero, so this will be a 2-digit number. So how many 2-digit numbers with units non-zero digit in the units place are there which are more than thrice the number formed by interchanging the position of its digits? So I am saying that this number is more than thrice of this value. So if I solve, I get 10x plus y is greater than 30y plus 3x. So 7x is greater than 29y. Now consider the possible values of y and x such that 7x will be greater than 29y. Now x and y are digits, so the only values that they can take is 0 to 9, and I am told that y is not 0, and because I have to start with a 2-digit number, x also cannot be 0. So I have to consider x and y such that the digits are 1, 2, 3 till 9. So in this I have to find digits x and y such that 7x is greater than 29y. So suppose y is equal to 1. If y is equal to 1, then what are the possible values of x? If y is equal to 1, this side becomes 29. So how many times 7 times x should be greater than 29? So I know that x equal to 4 is 28. So from x equal to 5 to x equal to 9, 7x will be greater than 29y. Now suppose y is equal to 2. If y is equal to 2, then 29y would be 58. Now 7 times 6 is 7 times 8 is 56. So only one possible value for x exists in such case, that is x equal to 9. Then 7 times 9 is 63. So the only cases are, I will just write down in enumerated form so that it is clearer. So the numbers are, this is x, this is y. So numbers are 51, 61, 71, 81 and 91 and 92. So how many such numbers are there? There are 6 such numbers. So the right answer is option A. So as you could see, this required some amount of enumeration, but you had a basic algebraic equation and you got a basic algebraic inequality. You got a basic inequality. Then you have to use number theory to figure out what would be the possible cases and enumerate those cases to get the answer. This is not difficult to solve, but most students would get stuck somewhere over here thinking what should I do next to proceed. So remember that inequalities require some basic idea of how to solve inequalities, but apart from that, those questions are fairly easy as such. Now let's go on to the next question on quadratic equations. So quadratic equations has a lot of concepts, not a lot of concepts, but it has concepts. You have to remember how to calculate the minimum and maximum value of a quadratic equation, how to factorize the equation, how to calculate the value of the root. So there's a formula for calculating the value of the root. So all of that, if you go through all of these topics, it becomes fairly easy for you. At Krakow, you will find a list of lessons that you can see to revise all the concepts that are there under quadratic equations. And you'll also have a lot of concept tests also associated with the videos, so you know exactly how to use those formulas as well. But there's a list of formulas that you just need to know, and if you know that, you should be able to solve questions from this topic. So consider the following question. The minimum possible value of the sum of squares of the roots of the equation x square plus a plus 3 times x minus a plus 5 is equal to what? Now the basic property you have to remember is that for a given equation, quadratic equation like this, suppose the roots are say p and q. The sum of the roots p plus q is given by minus b by a, where for equation of the form ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, the sum of the roots is minus b by a, and the product of the roots is equal to c by a. This is the basic concept that you need to know to solve this question. So what would be the sum of these roots p plus q? That would be minus b by a, that is minus a by plus 3 divided by 1. So that is minus a minus 3. And what is product of the roots? Product of the roots pq would be c by a, so that would be minus a plus 5 divided by 1. So that is essentially minus a plus 5. Now we are asked what is the minimum possible value of the sum of squares of the root. So what is sum of squares? Sum of squares is p square plus q square. Now I can write p square plus q square as p plus q the whole square minus 2pq, because on expanding this particular bracket I get p square plus q square plus 2pq. So I deduct 2pq to get p square plus q square. So I can write, I know that p plus q is essentially minus of a plus 3. So I can write that minus of a plus 3 the whole square minus 2 times minus a plus 5, because pq is minus a plus 5. So if I open up the brackets, I get the minus sign gets removed because of the squaring. So I get a plus 3 the whole square. So I can write that as a square plus 6a plus 9. And minus gets cancelled out, I get 2a plus 5, so that is plus 2a plus 10. So on adding I get a square plus 8a plus 19. Now I have to find the minimum value of this. So there are two ways to find the minimum value. One way is to express this equation as some product square, so say b square plus m, and you can say that since b square is a perfect square of a real number, the minimum possible value of b square will be positive, will be non-negative. So the minimum possible value of b square in such cases would be 0, and then the minimum value is n. That is one way to solve. Otherwise, you can also use the concept of calculating the minimum value of a quadratic equation. Now let's first try this method where you express it as the sum of a square plus another number. Now a square plus 8a plus 19. Now I see it as a square plus 8a. Now I can, because 8a is there, I think I have to express this as a square plus 4a plus 4 the whole square. So I can say that this is a square plus 8a plus 16 plus 3. So this part is essentially a plus 4 the whole square plus 3. Now the minimum value a plus 4 the whole square can take is when a is equal to minus 4. When a is equal to minus 4, this will become 0. At all other values other than minus 4, this value will be non-zero, or it will be in fact positive. So the minimum value of this part of the term is 0. So what is the minimum value of p square plus q square? That is when a is equal to 4 and the minimum value is 3. So the minimum possible value of sum of squares of the roots of the equation is, answer would be equal to 3. Now as I said, we could also calculate it by using the quadratic equation. So the quadratic equation is a square plus 8a plus 19. Now if I, for a quadratic equation of the form ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, if this a is positive, then the minimum value occurs at x equal to minus b by 2a. And the maximum value also occurs if a is negative, the maximum value occurs at minus b by 2a. Now since a is positive, in this case the coefficient of a square is 1. So in that case, since the coefficient of the square term is positive, the minimum value will occur when you calculate at minus b by 2a. So what is the coefficient of the a term? In this case it is 8. And 2a, so this will occur when a is equal to minus of 8 by 2, so that is minus 4. So what is the minimum value of this square term? That will occur when a is equal to minus 4, and that minimum value will be 16 minus 32 plus 19, so that is 3. So you could either calculate using the concepts of quadratic equation, or you can express this as a sum of square plus another number and then calculate the minimum value. In either case, the minimum value is 3. So as you could see, you needed to know some basic concepts. You needed to know what is sum of the roots, what is the product of roots. But once you had that, you could then solve the question without any other additional further knowledge. All of these questions, therefore, for you to solve quadratic equations, you need to actually go through all the basic concepts that are there before you start solving questions on quadratic equations. Now let's go on to the next topic. As I said, polynomial equation questions tend to be on the harder side. A very good example of that is this question. The smallest integer n such that n cube minus 11n square plus 32n minus 28 is greater than 0 is. So in such cases, I would recommend not solving it because this is a time consuming question. It might seem like a short question, but to actually solve this question, you would take a decent bit of time. So in such questions, the way I like to solve them is I start by drawing the integer line n. So this function f of n is equal to n cube minus this minus 28. So I have to draw this function as a graph on this number line where n is, this is the x-axis. So for different values on the number line, because I am told that n is an integer, so I have to consider all the integral points and see when f of n crosses the x-axis and goes above 0 as such. Now what is, to actually graph this, let us consider the different points on the number line. So what is the value when n is equal to 0? When n is equal to 0, all the other terms become 0 and it becomes minus 28. So it is somewhere here minus 28. So one point is here. When n is equal to 1, what is the value? N is equal to 1, it is 1 minus 11. So that is minus 10 plus 32. So it is minus 10 plus 32 is plus 22 minus 28. So it is minus 6. So it's over here. Now what is the value at n is equal to n equal to 2? Let's also consider below 1. So if it is below 0 actually, when it is below 0, you can see that all of these essentially n cube will be negative for all values integers less than 0. Minus n square again will be negative for all integers less than 0. This would be a negative value, this would be a negative value. For all values therefore that are integers less than 0, this will always be negative. So I can ignore all n less than 0 as such. I know n is for n equal to 0 it is minus 28, for n equal to 1 it is minus 6. Now what is the value for n equal to 2? It is 8 minus 44. So 8 minus 44 plus 64 minus 28. So this is equal to 0. So it touches the x-axis at 0. Now generally when the graph touches the x-axis at a particular value, it goes on to the next side. So potentially the smallest integer can be n equal to 3. But first let us actually check that out. So I see that if I put n equal to 3, what happens? That is 27 minus 99 plus 3, so 96 and minus 28. So this is minus 3 minus 1, so I get minus 4. So it has gone down, back down again, minus 4. So the only time this actually happens where instead of crossing the x-axis it goes back down. Firstly because n is equal, n minus 2 is, at n equal to 2 it is 0, means that n minus 2 is a factor of this equation. And the fact that it goes back down again means that n minus 2 must be a factor of the equation twice. Because if it was a factor of the equation once, then it would have gone up after that. But the fact that because it is a factor of the equation twice, it has gone up and immediately gone down. So what happens is that if you have a graph like that, at all the possible roots, it crosses the x-axis. So this is a root, this is a root, and between these two roots it is positive. Since it did not cross the x-axis, it means that both these roots are at the same place. So n minus 2 should be a factor of this particular equation twice. Let me actually calculate to confirm that. So let me factorize this equation. If I divide this equation by n minus 2, to divide polynomial equations you have to use the long form like this. So you have n cube minus 11n square plus 32n minus 28, and you have to consider n minus 2. Then say multiply this by n square. So I get n cube minus 2n square. So n cube cancel. This is minus plus. So I get minus 9n square plus 32n. Now to remove this I will say minus 9n. So I get minus 9n square plus 18n plus minus. So I get 14n minus 28. So I get plus 14. So I get n square minus 9n plus 14. I get then 14n minus 28 minus plus. So I get no remainder. So I get this equation is essentially n minus 2 times n square minus 9n plus 14. And n square minus 9n plus 14 can itself be factorized as, so the product should be 14 and the sum should be minus 9. So the possible, this is n minus 7 minus 2. So I can write this as n square, I will write it over here, n square minus 9 n plus 14, I will write this as n square minus 7n minus 2n plus 14. So that is n into n minus 7 minus 2 in times n minus 7. So I get n minus 2 times n minus 7. So what is this equation? This equation is essentially n minus 2 the whole square times n minus 7. So as I said, this graph will cross the x-axis only after it goes through a particular goes through the x-axis. So at this will keep on going down, and at some point it will go back up, and at n equal to 7 it will become 0, and at n equal to 8 it will go above 0. So what is the smallest integer such that this value will be greater than 0? The smallest integer is when n is equal to 8. So the answer is n is equal to 8. So for doing that I had to first factorize the equation. To factorize the equation I had to get a rough idea of how the graph was. Once I started drawing the graph, I could eliminate all integers less than 0. I saw once I started drawing the graph that n equal to 2 is a root. Once I got the root, I could factorize the rest of the equation. Once I factorized the rest of the equation, then it became easy that because it is, if it is n minus 2 the whole square into n minus 7, it will always be negative for all values less than 8. for all integers less than 8. The first time it will be greater than 0 is when n is equal to 8. So I got the answer using factorization. And as I said, factorization etc. takes time, because here I needed to first discover that n is equal to 2 is a factor. Using that I had to factorize the remaining part and calculate the remaining factor, so it took time. This therefore is a harder quant question, not because it's unsolvable, but because it takes a lot of time. And in quant, if you have to solve 34, you might not be able to solve all 34 questions, but you can solve 31 to 32 questions correctly. So this might be one of those 1 to 2 questions that you consider skipping out on. So this is one of those questions that I would not recommend solving immediately on reading, because this will take a lot of time to factorize and solve. So now that you know what it takes to solve questions on polynomial equations, let's go on to functions. Now functions, there are some easy questions, there are some hard questions. So the only way you can actually figure it out is if you read the question. Let f of x be equal to max of 5x, 52 minus 2x square, where x is any positive real number. Then the minimum possible value of f of x is what? So in such a case, so this is again I will graph it. So what is f of x is equal, y is equal to 5x can be drawn like this. It's a line, y is equal to 5x. And what is 52 minus 2x square? This is essentially a quadratic equation. Since the quadratic equation coefficient of x square is negative, it will be inverted like this. So what would be the case? In such cases, for all values below a certain value, the quadratic equation will be the higher maximum value or the higher value, and hence it would be chosen by the max function. For all other values, the line would be the higher value, and that's the max function will then choose it. So how do you find that when is this value the right value? So we will basically have to find when does it actually cross over. That is, when both values are equal, that is the point of crossover. So beyond that value, you will find that that value is that value would be the one at which whenever there is a crossover, that would be the value at which the min or max is achieved. In addition to this, it is given that x is a positive real number. So even though we have two solutions here, only one of them is a valid solution, because x has to be a positive real number. So let's try to solve. So the crossover or minimum value will occur when these two equations meet, or when these two parts are equal. So 5x will be equal to 52 minus 2x square, or 2x square plus 5x minus 52 is 0. So this is basically a quadratic equation. If you solve this quadratic equation, we get x is equal to 4 or x is equal to minus 6.5. As x is a positive real number, we can eliminate this possibility. So they meet essentially cross at x equal to 4. So at x equal to 4, you will get the minimum value of this function. So what is the minimum value? F of x minimum value would be, f of x min is essentially f of 4, that is 20. So the minimum value of this particular this is 20. So as you could see, this required you to have some idea of how to graph it. Even if you don't know how to graph things, just remember that when you have to find the minimum value of two sets of terms like this, you have to equate those terms, then calculate what is the value of x, plug that value in the function to get the minimum value of the function. That is the basic concept that you have to follow in such questions. Now let's go on to the next question. The last part is logs, indices, inserts. So this as I said, to solve these questions you have to go through a lot of formulas. There is a long list of formulas that you have to remember to solve these questions. But if you remember those formulas, these questions are trivially easy. So let's take a look at this question. So the question is, if log 81 to the base 12 is equal to p, then 3 times 4 minus p divided by 4 plus p is equal to what? So I know that p is equal to log 81 to the base 12. But for the sake of ease of comparison, I will convert them to a base that I am more comfortable with, that is log to the base 10. So I can write this as log 81 to the base 10 divided by log 12 to the base 10. So based on this, I can write down 81 is nothing other than 3 raised to 4. So this is essentially 4 log 3. And the denominator is log 12. So log 12 is 3 into 4. So I can write this as log 3 plus log 4. and log 4 is essentially 4 is 2 square, so I can write this as log 2 into 2 log 2. So I get p value as this. Now to calculate my desired equation, so suppose this is E, so E is equal to 3 times 4 minus p divided by 4 plus p. So 4 minus p is 4 minus this value. So that I will get as, I will multiply it with the denominator directly, and I will cancel the denominator in the both sides. So I get 4 log 3 plus 8 log 2 minus 4 log 3 divided by then I have log 3 by plus 2 log 2, but that will get cancelled in numerator and denominator, so I will not write that. And I have 4 plus p, so it is 4 log 3 plus 8 log 2 plus 4 log 3. So in this case, this gets cancelled over here, so I get 3 times 8 log 2, so this is 24 log 2 divided by 8 log 3 plus 8 log 2. So dividing by 8 on numerator and denominator, I get 3 log 2 divided by log 3 plus log 2. So what is 3 log 2? 3 log 2 is I can cube 3, essentially take it as the index of 2. So I get log 8. And what is log 3 plus log 2? That is nothing but log 6. So I get log 8 by log 6, or I can write this as log 8 to the base 6. So the right answer is option A. So as you could see, this required me to just basically expand the equation, cross off the terms that are in common, and then I get the equation and I can go back to the desired equation. To solve this, you needed to know how to express logarithms in different bases, how to change the base, how to take the index outside the logarithm, take the index back into the logarithm. If you knew this, then it became a simple question of jumbling the equations around. So as you could see, you have some formulas and some concepts to remember in logarithms, but if you do that, it is a simple question for you to solve. Compare this question to the question that came in polynomial equations. That one required a lot of time to solve. Here you would take hardly a minute or two to solve if you knew the formula as such. So always make sure that you put in the time and effort to remember the formulas involved in logarithms, indices and surds, and if you know those formulas, these questions will become trivially easy for you. So this is the syllabus for algebra. As you can see, this requires some amount of effort, some amount of concepts need to be learned, but if you put in the effort, you can expect 10 questions from this particular topic. So it's a pretty important topic as far as CAT is concerned. Now that you know what is expected, what are the subtypes, what are the different formulas, what is the level of difficulty of questions, what I would urge you is to actually go back and learn all the concepts involved. Put in some time to practice from each section so that you are very comfortable in algebra. Only then would you be confident of being able to solve a third of quant, which is a big deal. If you are able to solve a third of quant always for certain, then you would have solidified one particular foundation as far as CAT 2019 is concerned. So please go make sure that you go and practice and learn the concepts. Krakow can help you with that by giving you a list of concepts to read, a playlist of videos that you can see and learn, and a concept test associated with each video and each note so that you can practice what you have learned. So, and you also have Krakow study room where you can practice from each of these subtopics till you are confident that you are pretty good at them. So please make sure that you take advantage of Krakow's excellent study room and video series. There are a lot of questions that are available for free. There are a lot of videos on our website that are available for free. So please make sure that you use them and are good at algebra come CAT 2019. Thank you for tuning in.